Welcome to the InterViews podcast.
Prima attenzione, Bobo anticipato, palla vagante, mette giù, recova, il tiro,
Welcome, Interisti, to episode 153 of the InterViews podcast, the official podcast of SempreInter.com. Man, it is good to be back in the booth, chop it up with my man Johnny. I had a few weeks off here. Obviously, you guys haven't heard from me in a little while, which Johnny may not be happy with me about, but we all need a little break, right? We all need to step away.
I'll be honest, guys. I didn't know if he was coming back. All this talk about needing a break, family, leaving the country.
Yeah,
it seemed like he was fleeing the U.S. To be quite honest, I did not know what to expect, and the fact that he's here, it's only because I kidnapped his fiance and said either you record the episode or you don't get to see her again.
You know, a lot of people may doubt that, but you should. Like any good transfer rumor out there, you probably should take it with a grain of salt. But nonetheless,
Fabrizio Romano is going to have an update on this whole situation later today. So
Simone Fegna is the guy with the most accuracy. That's the one I'd keep an eye out for. But nonetheless, we are back, and it's actually the perfect timing. Inter just got back most of the team to preseason, so it's a really good time for us to be reconnecting here, getting back into the swing of things. Some other content creators out there have done a really good job kind of holding the water here in terms of the coverage just week to week. Personally, for me, I don't know, Johnny, if you feel this way, it's like a report comes out. I've been in the game long enough to know, like, not to believe everything you read, but it feels like a report comes out, there's a meltdown from the fan base, and it can get pretty exhausting left and right. So I like the fact that, we're taking a little bit of time to let things settle and then get in here and actually be able to really analyze, what's going on instead of reacting to it minute by minute. But the boys over at Inter Extra have done a really good job. Obviously, Sharma has been killing it with the scouting reports this summer. So Interisti, you've had plenty of content to keep track of this summer, but the InterViews boys are back in the saddle here, ready to go as this season ramps up. Preseason's been going for some other teams. I've already had several friendlies, not the case for Inter, which is a good thing considering what our schedule has been. So, as always, I'm one half of your co-hosting duo, Alessandro Raffa, joined here by Johnny Paterno. Johnny, let's kick it off right now. Camp this summer. Some things are different. Not only new faces, but let's start here. Inter officially announced that the preseason training sessions are not open to the public. Kivu is going to have his hands on this team out of the prying eyes of the public here. Your thoughts on this decision, which I think, the fan base in Milano may not be too happy about it. They're used to summer in and summer out, being able to go watch these guys train. But what do you think about this kind of unconventional move for the team as they have a new coach heading into the season?
Yeah, I'm okay with it, to be quite honest. I think that it's important that, some things be kept quiet until the beginning of the actual season. Not saying that you're going to have fans out there leaking, video. Obviously, they limit what people are able to do with their own mobile devices, and they can't have anything posted to social media typically at these things. So I think it's, I think they're just being a little more cautious and playing things a little bit closer to the vest, which I'm okay with. I feel like that there's been too many times where things have been leaked or things have gone out, and it's not even within Kivu, but within, the last few years. And I think it's important that Kivu have a clear mind, obviously, going into it, but also just the fact that he's able to keep things close and have things that are kept between him and the players only, and that he's able to develop those relationships and kind of make it more of a close-knit group. I saw something that says he wants to be a democratic dictator. I don't know what that means per se, but that sounds good to me. Like if it plays out the way I would want it to. So, if you're able to build that level of trust and camaraderie within the dressing room, it's important to have players that want to play for you and that want to fight for you, as well as the badge, of course. I think that above all, it's Inter first. And instead of worrying about your own glory, you have to be worrying about the team and what it does for, the club and obviously the fans. You want to be able to give back to them. So I think that this is going to be a good thing over the long haul. Whereas, I'm sure people are like, obviously in Milan are upset, right? They want to be there. They want to be able to see these trainings and be able to watch, maybe Boni or how, Sucic performs, whatever it is. And maybe, how's he going to line up? What are his plans? You know what? Like, we'll see day one, or we'll see the first, preseason friendly, what his intentions are. And for all we know, that may not even be his intention. He may be just trying something out to see how it is. So I'm excited for this. And even though I still have a little bit of trepidation regarding, Kivu's readiness, as well as, some of the players' motivation to perform this season, I still think that for the most part, I'm pretty excited for what could happen.
Yeah, I like it for several reasons. I think maybe first and foremost, you kind of see it in interviews that Piero has given recently and interviews that Beppe has given recently. Like Beppe has created a controversy, calling out Hakan earlier in the summer. We've talked about this. Piero, mentioning like, you guys constantly talk about our transfer market, but you don't know what's going on. The reality is, like, this team needs less noise around what they're doing. And you already see it. Gazzetta is putting out reports like Kivu wants to move Hakan closer to goal, which I don't believe for a second. But like, why do we need to give everyone a reason to continue to put noise around this club?
Exactly.
It seems like we could use, after what's been a really taxing season mentally, a bit of a slowdown in terms of how we're reported on and, all the noise about the team. You have Hakan coming back into the side and being reintegrated. And it's like, the fans have shown support for him, putting up banners outside of the training grounds. But, I don't know. Anything could happen in training where all of a sudden people run with it, and it is what it is. The second reason I really like it is, like, I think it's an indicator that there's going to be some change in terms of the way this team plays, which I'm really, really on board for. And I think they want to keep it close to the vest and let things play out in training and let the guys, get used to what the changes are without the pressure of having to be constantly looked over and analyzed. So, yeah, I think this is the right move. It's kind of like a retiro, like you just go away and do the work. And this team, we know it's going to look different next year. So why don't you, work in peace, essentially, to make sure that looks as good as possible for the start of the season. Speaking of the start of the season, Milan's already putting in friendlies against some of these big sides here. Played Arsenal, played Liverpool. Inter's first preseason friendly, today's July 27th, is not until August 8th. Good thing, because they don't really need to be playing teams immediately after playing deep into the summer here. We all want to see this new look Inter, but it's good for them to get some weeks in training and weeks getting back into fitness before we actually have to see them on August 8th. The preseason schedule, let's pull it up here. It's going to be Monaco, Monza, and Olympiacos. Just 3 friendlies heading into the season. For you, Johnny, is that enough on the calendar, considering how long our last season was, in order for this new team, new coach to be ready for the start of the Serie A season?
I'd say that's more than enough. I really don't think that we need to do any more than that. I think we need to treat it as such. I think we as fans need to recognize, and you can look at preseasons in the past, this does not indicate what's going to play out in the season. Let's take it with a grain of salt. Let's see what he's trying to do. Let's allow players to get acclimated to maybe new roles, to maybe, playing alongside new teammates. and not hit a panic button if we, let's say, lose the first friendly 5-0. Not saying that's going to happen, but I'm going to go into this with just expectation of seeing players adapting to new roles, seeing players getting, put in different positions maybe that they're not accustomed to, and just allowing things to take time over the course of preseason. There we go. I'm excited for some of these players. And I do find it interesting that Olympiacos is on the schedule because of a potential player swap that may happen with Olympiacos. I don't know how true it is, but there is a rumor of Palacios to Olympiacos for Lorenzo Pirola. But Olympiacos would rather pay money. We just want the player. I do think that there'll be some conversations on the sidelines when that friendly takes place. So it'll be, I think 3 games more than enough. And as a matter of fact, I would rather just be, 1 game. And then we just do training and allow some of these guys to still get rest. Unless you're just going to be playing young players to kind of see if they have a role in this squad going forward, So
yeah, that is an interesting rumor. We'll get into it here as we talk about the transfer market. Obviously, the big story is going to be Lookman, but I think the way that we should go about this is let's go position group by position group. And talk about the different transfer rumors, outgoings, incomings for each of these position groups. And that way we'll go ahead and cover everything. So goalkeeper, there was some talk about Sommer. There's some interest from Galatasaray. That's died down. It does not seem like that's happening. We're going to be rolling with Sommer and Martinez going into this season, which I'm cool with. Some discussion who should be starting. I'm cool with either, but I do lean towards let's pass the torch here. If we're doing it at so many other positions and we did it at head coach, I don't know that Sommer's going to be too happy about that, but I am a Josep Martinez fan. I think you are too. Do you have any thoughts about if this should even be a competition between the two, or is it still Sommer's job and Martinez is going to have to wait a little bit longer?
Look, I said this last year that I thought that would be the way things would play out, where it would become a competition this season. I still hope that that's the case. I know there's some Interisti who aren't high on Josep Martinez, and they would rather us chase a name like a Donnarumma, which I don't think is still realistic. As a matter of fact, I'm actually more hopeful that Juventus go after Donnarumma, because then that would free up Di Gregorio, which is the only guy realistically that I would want over Josep Martinez personally. So I think we need to put those ideas to rest. And my personal opinion, I think that we have a goalkeeper capable of carrying the torch for the next 7, 8, 9, however many years you want to look at it. So I would like to see it be a competition. I don't think that it should just be guaranteed that it goes to Sommer. I think if you look at the way he performed at the Club World Cup, he left some things to be desired. I thought some of those goals that were scored could have been saves, but we'll see. Maybe Kiwu is just gonna be loyal to the old guard. I hope that's not the case. I think that you need to have players fight for their position. Even if he does become the starter, I think that it shouldn't just be handed to him. I think that he has to deserve it, which I think should be the case for everybody, not just Sommer. I think Barella needs to prove that he can, regain his form. Last season was a disappointment. I think the only person really who should feel confident in his starting role is Bastoni right now. Lautaro was not great last season, and although he had a pretty decent showing in the Club World Cup, I still wanted more. And Thuram had his ups and downs, especially having such a great start to 24-25. I think guys need to feel a bit of pressure. And when you bring in talents like Pio and Boni up front, I think that could apply a little bit of pressure on those guys to want to elevate their games. And bringing in a guy like Sucic, I think that's going to be, huge to boost, intensity from guys like Barella and whether it be Fratesi, Çalhanoğlu, whoever else you want to include in there. Notice I didn't say one specific midfielder because I think this pretty much guarantees that he should be on the bench going forward. But anyway, yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah. Maybe this is why Kivu wanted closed doors, because it is going to be a competition, and he doesn't want there is going to be competition for a lot of different places, and he doesn't want there to be a big drama about it. But I think any successful team is a team that does have competition for all places, across the squad. I think there's recruitment this summer has certainly seemed to point to it's time to get younger, it's time to get more athletic, and it's time to earn your spot. And I think that should be exciting for every Interista. All right, the defense. Let's start with the right center back position, because this team will continue to play for their foreseeable future a back three. A couple recent reports regarding Bisek and Pavard. First, with Bisek, that there was interest earlier in the summer. Bisek denied any of those moves. He wants to stay and prove himself at Inter prior to the 2026 World Cup. On the flip side, Benjamin Pavard, apparently not untouchable. If a team comes to the table with the right offer, some controversy this summer around Benji, obviously leaving the Club World Cup with an injury, seen playing paddle not too long after that, riled up a lot of Interisti, for good measure, because if you're hurt, right? You shouldn't necessarily be doing anything that athletic if you can't be with the rest of your teammates. Benji also getting married this summer, so congratulations to him. My question to you is, neither of these players on the squad this upcoming season, one of them or both?
I think one of them. I really do think that there will be a point of emphasis on trying to offload Pavard. As much as he has been a pretty good player for us in the past, he's approaching 30. The desire and the passion doesn't seem to be there. I think that he kind of seems to be just along for the ride. And I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just reading into this too much or seeing things the way I feel like I'm seeing them. I know that there was rumors. I really don't know. Like, I think it was Mediaset who was talking about, unnamed big clubs that are interested in Benji. Name them. If you know the clubs, you can't just say like, oh, there's, interest from big clubs. Well, who are they? So that maybe there is no truth in that aspect. It could just be, intermediaries from either Pavard's camp or Inter's camp trying to put some stuff out there to see if they could draw interest on it. That's great and all, but I do think that it would be best to cash in on him while he still has some value. Even if you're able to, recoup 20, 25 million as opposed to the 30 that we did spend on him, it could be good for us to kind of move on and maybe reinvest that money to a guy like a Leone or something else, potentially down the line. But I do think that obviously with Oak Tree being here, we do want to get younger. We want to be able to bring in players who can have not only immediate impact, but also longevity and then resell value, where they'll be able to, make big gains on the resale. So it'll be interesting to see, how this plays out. But I think that, Benji may be a guy that they try to move on from.
It's an interesting situation. Apparently, Inter management was not happy with Benji this summer. Again, like, I can see that being the case, but what I struggle with is a big club actually making a move for him. I don't doubt that Oak Tree would want to move on from him, given his age, given what he's approaching. I still think he's a super, super quality player. We've seen some games from him that have been amazing in Inter shirt. We've seen some games that have not been so good, but I do worry a little bit. Like, let's say the Lorenzo Pirola rumor plays into this. You're going to have a right center back position of Bisek and Pirola. That worries me a little bit. I still think Benji is a super quality defender, but I would understand if like a big club came with a big enough bid. I think they would probably even take like 25 for him, if not like slightly less. But I think both are going to be on the team next year. That's my prediction. I don't think they're going to rock the boat too much in terms of, or want to rock the boat too much in terms of the outgoings here. So I think both Bisek and Pavard will be on the team next season. And I think Pavard is still going to be the starter. I don't think Bisek overtakes him just yet. We'll see how the rest of the season plays out. On the left-hand side, it's really only Palacios. I don't really care where he goes at this
Me
point.
neither.
Like, would like him to stay in Serie A, but I had high hopes for him coming into the team, but he needs to develop somewhere else, obviously. And I don't really care where that's going to take place. We obviously saw some success with Inter's choosing specific spots for their loaning of their talented youngsters, such as Stankovic, who obviously exploded, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. And then Pio, obviously, who also exploded, came back into the team. So hopefully they can make the right call on his move. But as far as the center of the defense is concerned, right now, as of today, Acerbi and De Vrij still here. Rumors that Acerbi is going to be the one to be cut if Leone is coming in. Right now, Leone on the back burner until a certain other deal that we'll talk about a little bit later in this episode gets done. His representatives were at Inter HQ this past week. Apparently, the player wants Inter, but they're not going to wait forever. Inter, after securing a certain signing, are going to need to push out some of these outgoings, such as Aslani, Taremi, and the like, in order to bring Leone in. I guess let's start here with Leone. This is going to be a late Mercato deal if it gets done. Percentage-wise, what's your confidence level that he ends up at an Inter, as opposed to, for example, a Juventus who is willing to make the bid now but leave him at Parma for the year?
Yeah, I put it at 25% confident that we can get that deal done, to be honest. As much as I want him at Inter, in reality, we should have... This is the thing that kind of frustrates me with our management group. You had a chance to get him last year while he was at Samp. Or sorry, a year before he went to Parma when he was at Samp. You could have got him for between 7 and 10 million euros. That's basically what we spent on Palacios, who seems to be, for all intents and purposes, kind of a flop signing.
Yeah.
It's stupid that you have someone in your own backyard. Now, don't get me wrong. I know I'm one of the ones who's complaining about, hey, let's go shop outside of Italy. I usually mean that for like forwards and midfielders. We did that with Sucic, thrilled about it. But like, when was the last time Argentina produced a solid center back? Romero, really, right?
Yeah. And I'm not even the biggest.
That's really, and that wasn't even really in Argentina. He was produced in Serie A, realistically. You know, I mean, yes, they did sign him and bring him over Atalanta and kind of make him the player that he is. But it's very few and far between. And you can even go before that, not really many people who come to mind. You know, I mean, obviously you have Samuel, maybe Di Michelis and stuff like that, but they're not known for producing defenders. So why we went for Palacios, I don't know. You know, I never was a fan of his pace. I thought that he was slow even then, and he looked even worse at his limited time at Monza. You could have had Leone for way less. You could have left him at loan at Sampdoria. You could have loaned him to Parma if you wanted to. It could have all been avoided. But as much as I want him at Inter, I think, you know, there is another player, like you said, that we are trying to wrap up as well. I think that player is more important than bringing in Leone, as much as I like him.
What do you think Leone ends up moving to one of the other two teams, Milan or Juve, if it's not Inter this summer?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think if anything, it's going to be Juve that's able to wrap that up and kind of leave him alone at Parma, which I think will be important for him to develop. But yeah, I think that if we don't, I would feel much better about it getting done if Aslani was already on his way out or somebody was already leaving. That way, maybe you could kind of get both deals done around the same time. I mean, listen, there's no point in dancing. Lookman and Leone, if you can get them both done at the same time, that would be ideal. But
probably as good a Mercato as we've had since Lukaku and Hakimi coming in.
Oh, I was even going to go further back, but yeah.
I would argue I would argue even further back as well.
And actually, Hakimi came the year after Lukaku came.
Oh, he did. You're right.
So like it was. It was Barella, Lukaku, and Sensi.
Right.
Which that's a great one. But like you get Boni, Sucic. If you're able to get Lookman, and Leone,
but you also got to account for some of the outgoings too. Like if in the same summer that you bring in, for example, knock on wood, a Lookman or a Leone, and you also rid your club of a Taremi or an Aslani, like that's part of the Mercato. It is big. So we'll see how things play out there. If it's not Leone and we do roll with Acerbi De Vrij, do you think they move for a lower cost option to bring in to add to that group? Or do you think they're just going to roll with Acerbi and De Vrij until maybe January and see if they can pump in any other investments?
I mean, it'll be a little scary to see if that is who they roll into the season with, right? Age, pace, those seem to be hitting those guys pretty hard. I feel like you still have to make a signing. I don't know if you're going to find a good enough low-cost signing to play at center back. I feel like you have to make it, be Leone. It's kind of sad that you allowed Coppola to leave for, Serie A for 10 million euros. You mean to tell me nobody needed Coppola at their club? Like he couldn't have done the job. And now listen, I think that's a flawed player. There's still things that need to be worked on. I'm not saying that he's a finished product and that he's ready to make the leap to a big club. But for a 10 million euro investment to have as like a project and allow maybe Acerbi and De Vrij to kind of shoulder the load before he's able to step in, I would have felt good about that. But yeah, I don't know of what low cost options are out there. It's kind of sad that the Solet rumors have kind of died out. That there's like almost like no interest there, and maybe that's because
why hasn't anyone picked him up?
I don't know, and maybe that could be because Udinese has made it known. I mean, again, we don't, but that they don't look to sell him at all. Could be very well possible. I mean, the guy was really good for them, so you may want to hang on to him as much as you can. But yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see what, if any, moves are made for that center back role.
Okay, last question on the center back. If it does end up being Leone, do you think Inter are going to retain De Vrij and Acerbi and have him? He is 18 years old. Like, would you? Let me ask it this way: would you retain him and retain them and have him work under them, or do you throw him straight into the fire? Like, hey, Acerbi, you're out. Leone, you're partnering De Vrij, and this is what it is.
Yeah, I think that I would try to move on from Acerbi, to be quite honest. And it's not a knock on him by any means. I just think that if you want a young player to develop, you have to be able to play them. There's no point of signing him if you're just going to end up loaning him out to Lecce or something else. And then you have to keep Acerbi and De Vrij. I would want him to learn. Obviously, Kivu trusted him enough to play him in big games for Parma. And he was able to shut down, Juventus's attack and play very well and be able to handle that pressure. Now, I understand it's a different pressure when you're wearing the Inter colors, but that doesn't mean that he's not ready or capable to do that. Now, do I think that you start him match day one if you bring him in? No, I think that's a little ridiculous, to throw him to the fire in that sense. But I do think that he would be able to come in and do a job and be a good rotational player. And if you're able to split games with him or allow him to play, Coppa Italia exclusively for sure. And then maybe, the lower tier games where he's able to play, against Pisa and all the other, clubs that are going to be finishing in the bottom half of the table. That could be good for his development for sure.
You wanted to say Sassuolo, but you know better.
I know better. Yeah, that's why I was like, we're going to go with Pisa on this one. But yeah, if you want him to develop, it has to be, at a different pace, where as opposed to just, trial by fire.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting, should be noted, Kivu made Leone a starter and did not look back once.
Well.
In those
so maybe match
games.
day 6, he's the starter, and then we don't look back.
Yeah, I would love that. It's definitely a goal of mine to bring in Leone. Okay, let's look towards these wingbacks. There's really only one thing to discuss here. Luis Enrique is on the team. Di Marcos, Zalewski, Darmian. Obviously, we know rotating back and forth between wingback and Braccetto. But a lot of talk this summer about Denzel Dumfries' $25 million release clause. People up in arms, not realizing that maybe the only way they were able to lock in a contract extension is because they told him they would give him this release clause. His agent is apparently changing. There's some reports that that's not the case, that it's Jorge Mendes. If you hire Jorge Mendes as an agent, it's because you are leaving in a big money move. Release clause expires end of this month. Barcelona saying we're good. We're good. Not signing anyone else. Our team is complete. Newcastle and Aston Villa apparently were, teams to be scared of here. Silence. No movement. Johnny, I ask you, Denzel Dumfries, will he be the right wing back come the start of the season?
Yes, he will be. If I'm not mistaken, that clause has already run up. I think it was like the middle.
They said it was the middle of July initially, but now it's end of July 31st.
Well, he's not going anywhere. No one's going to wrap anything up in 4 days. That's not giving enough time to invest in a new right wing back anyway. And I can guarantee you this management group does not want to go into the season with just Luis Enrique on the right side, especially after what I saw at the Club World Cup. My God, do I not like this guy. I did not want him. I am disgusted. He's already the new Dumfries for me. But anyway.
It had to happen at some point.
What?
We need a new punching bag, right? It had to happen.
And it's him. Actually, I did just buy a Denzel Dumfries autograph card. I never thought I would add it to the collection, and I did it. I got a Dumfries autograph, but yeah, I think that he will be here at the start of the season. I think this will be his last year at Inter. To be honest, I think that he'll finish this year up. Whatever happens. Hopefully, we're able to get the Scudetto one last time before he heads out, and yeah, I don't see him going anywhere in the next 4 days.
Okay. So let me ask you a question, because there is some confusion about whether or not Jorge Mendes is actually Dumfries' agent or if he's literally just an intermediary that is working to try to bring him to Barcelona. But regardless, does the potential contact with Jorge Mendes worry you from the standpoint of is he still here mentally? And then also, after the Club World Cup with Lautaro talking about certain players that, if they don't want to be here, they need to get out. There were a lot of rumors that Denzel was a part of this. Are you at all worried that this mentality monster that was so crucial for us last season to push on towards our goals, that he might not be as bought in as Interistas are used to seeing him?
No, I think he's a professional first and foremost. I don't really see this being an issue. It may be a bit of a distraction early in the season. He may, come out of the gates a little slowly. But, I mean, based on what even I saw at the Club World Cup, there were rumors circulating even then. He performed pretty well, even in, given the circumstances. So I'm not too concerned about it. And maybe I should be, but you know what? Maybe this is me turning a new leaf with Denzel Dumfries, and I'm putting a little bit more trust in him as a professional, and that he'll be able to perform well for us.
Yeah, it would seem weird for a player who went through all that he went through and showed what he is as a professional at the top level to all of a sudden become this diva who just wants out and is gonna not give his best. It doesn't seem like that is who he is, but then again, we don't know how these things are going to shake out. Tejan Buchanan out of the club, sold to Villarreal. Good to get that money in. There's a 20% percentage on his resale. So that's good. You love to hear that. You love to have those, a little bit of cash maybe in the future. Let's move on to this midfield area. Let's start with a player who's much maligned, but looks to be signing a contract extension with Inter. A raise in his salary. Potentially was going to leave the club for 35-40 this summer. None of that materialized. Kivu is apparently a fan of him. Your hopes for Fratesi heading into the season, does the fact that Kivu may play him in a role that is more suited to his strengths excite you at all about extending this player's contract for another 3 years? His name is Davide Fratesi.
No, not excited about it. I don't see it. If you're going to play him further up the pitch, he still needs to be able to link up with the strikers. The man's passing ability is trash. I don't see him really being a player who can link it up, who can tie in the double pivots with the forwards. Like, he's just not going to be able to offer much. He's great inside the box. He's great at finding space and getting loose and being able to score. That I'm not going to disagree with anybody. But if you're going to play him in that trequartista role, potentially, where he's playing behind two forwards or alongside another forward who's dropped back so that there's one sole striker, he's going to have to be able to learn how to pass and to be able to link up and help those guys get scoring chances. You can't go through 70 minutes in a game and only attempt 6 passes for me if you're going to be playing up there. What are you doing then? I just don't get it. And look, like I say all the time, like, fine, prove me wrong, right? Like, just make me look like an idiot. I'm fine with that if it means that we're getting 3 points in games and you are turning into a player that I never saw you becoming. Like, more than happy to have that happen. But I just don't see any development in his game as a whole to where there's signs that is a possibility. And maybe Kivu can be the right guy to get him to unlock that potential there. And maybe, Kivu invites Wes out there to help him understand what it's like to play that role. I don't know.
Imagine.
I mean, they're buddies. Like, why wouldn't that be a possibility? But I'm not saying he's going to start taking free kicks and scoring bangers for us, but something needs to happen in his game for that next level to be unlocked. And right now, I'm a bit of a doubter.
So I agree with you 100%. I think a change in formation that allows him to not necessarily need to be involved. For me, it's not like, oh, go play closer to goal. For me, it's like his best role is your defensive responsibilities are lower. We'll have someone else take care of that role, and your build-up responsibilities are also decreased. We'll have someone else take care of that role. As a midfielder that can like bomb the box and be a threat from that aspect, few better. But it's not just about a position change, like you said, Johnny. There are limitations to his footballing ability that make you get a little cockeyed when you look at you're extending him for another 3 years. What do you think this extension is really about? Do you think, like, everyone, they have eyes the same way that we have eyes, right? They might just understand this game better than we do, even though we'll refuse to ever admit that. Is this extension smell more like, hey, we're making sure that it's going to be a price for you in the future that no one can come to the table and say, hey, his contract's running down, whatever it is? Or do you think it's a sign of like, we really believe in this player, we want this player at the club doing his thing?
I mean, it very well could be a situation where they're thinking like, yes, all right, we extend him that way that maybe if he does have, a big year, boom, value goes up and we're able to sell him at, a bigger gain than if we did it now, where it would just be minimal what we're able to recoup for him. As much as we like to say that, hey, like, they don't see what we see or they don't understand it or, we know better. They very well could have that thought process, right? And I think selfishly, I hope that that's the case because I just don't really see him being an influential player in this team. And I truly just don't even think that he's inter-quality. Like, no, I'm not trying to be offensive, but I'm just not his biggest fan.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm gonna root for him as long as he's at this club to do something for us. But
100%.
Yeah, we'll see how that shakes out. Let's talk about a recent outgoing before we get to confirmation of a player staying. that was rumored to leave, and quite possibly has been the transfer saga of the summer for Inter. But before we get into that, Alexander Stankovic, a player that I think we both really appreciate, he leaves to Club Bruges. I think the main thing that I want to know from you is less so like, is it a mistake to, have him leave to Bruges? Bruges, obviously, they do a good job at developing players. I like the fact that, he's going over there and he's going to do his thing. But the structure of this deal is really what I have a question on. Around 10 million in our pockets now. In order to purchase him, we do have a buyback clause valid for the next 2 years. It jumps each year. First year around 22 to 23 million, according to reports. Second year around 25 million. So this is a player that we developed in our academy. We sent him on loan to Switzerland, to the right situation where he exploded. Obviously, a lot of that is on him. But again, like, it's part of our development plan. Now we're getting 10 million for this player that we've developed and have the option to purchase him back in the next couple of years for a good sum, right? If you look at it like, money in, money out, it's only 15 million euros, but it still bothers me a little bit that you end up having to pay that much for a player that essentially you helped get to the top. You could also look at it like, well, Bruges, if he's worth 25 million, then Bruges also helped him develop. I don't know. I'm a little unsure about the structure of the deal. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it almost feels like we negotiated against ourselves in that scenario. I don't understand. And look, he very well could be the next, big thing and develop to be a 75, $80 million player. Whereas if we have the option to get him back for at most 25 million, maybe that is a win in the long haul, right? Like maybe we buy him back and then flip him immediately to a German giant who, could potentially want him. Who knows? I'm not the biggest fan of this deal, obviously. When you have to pay more than double what you sell a player for, I think that's a little crazy. I would have been fine if it went up to like 17 million. I think obviously that they're able to kind of make their money back and a little bit of a profit themselves. You have to look at it from a business standpoint, right? But I just feel like this isn't really good business unless he develops into an absolute superstar of a player.
They're a tough team to negotiate with, as Milan has been doing for 2 months with Jashari.
And listen, he very well may develop that player. And who knows? Maybe the Inter are being smart too when you think about it from that standpoint, right? Like, let's say he becomes this player that now people want and they're demanding 50 million. Well, no, we're paying 25. Yep. And they're going to hold firm on whatever it would be, whether it was like, let's say they thought he was 40, 45, 50. They're not going to budge. Like, they're going to get what they want. So, listen, if we decide to buy him back, then this could very well play in our hands. And if he turns out to be a flop, then you don't have to buy him back anyway.
You don't have to buy him back. And
there's nothing that says you have to buy him back in 2 years.
It does feel like they wanted cash right now. It does feel like Inter's Mercato, they needed certain deals because it looks like, the Aslani, it's turning out to be harder to get money than we anticipated. Same thing with Seba Esposito. It almost feels like they really needed some cash in their pocket immediately and were willing to do a deal like this.
Yeah, and I know people are upset about it, but like I just said, like, we don't have to buy him back if we don't want to. Plain and simple.
Yeah. At some point, Interisti, Fabian was playing in a manner that made you think that 12 million buyback was going to be a bargain. Like, can Stankovic do the same thing? He has a ceiling that is twice as high as what Fabian's is, in my opinion. So
I would agree with you there.
Yeah. Interesting deal. But nonetheless, the money's in our pocket, and we shift over to Hakan Çalhanoğlu, who, after weeks of people arguing he wasn't really doing the flirting with these Turkish teams, his family definitely was. His agent, spotted having these conversations, getting into a very public spat with Lautaro and Beppe, trading Instagrams back and forth, not really back and forth, but responding on Instagram. Nonetheless, in the final week before he's scheduled to report back for preseason training, Fenerbahce comes to the table, and then it turns out that nothing materialized. Right before he's set to come back to Inter's preseason, his agent says, "Hey, he's staying at Inter." All those voices were just voices. Nothing ever materialized, and he's with the team. He says he's happy. He's posting pictures with Lautaro. They've made up. Are you happy to see Hakan Çalhanoğlu back with his team for preseason? And it looks like he's going to be an integral part of the squad moving forward.
Not really, if I'm being quite honest. I feel like we should have tried to offload him and get some money in. His value is only going to drop. He's not going to be worth much after this upcoming season. And when you had a chance to get, even if you only got 20 million for him from one of these Turkish teams, that's 20 million net you would have made. You got him in for nothing,
plus the salary off the books.
Which, yeah. So I think with everything, you would have been saving roughly 31 million, or made 31 million. You would have had 11 million.
I think a little more. Maybe closer to 35.
See, and I thought with the different, he makes around 7 million. So then he would have I think it's 11 without the taxes and everything.
Yeah, but I don't know exactly.
Maybe I'm wrong, but regardless, let's all right, fine. 30, let's say 30 to 35 million that you're able to have back. I mean, you need to look at that as a win if you were able to get even 20. So I had the daydreams of guys like Lookman. I know you're a big Stiller fan. It would have been nice to get fresh blood in here. You need a revolution. You really do. You need a squad revolution. It's not a rebuild. It's just bringing in young players who can perform and be able to compete and help. And who knows if he's going to be in it. I don't. Yes, they may post a picture of him and Lautaro together and hey, everything's good, guys. Don't worry. Why they're doing that? For show. That doesn't mean everything that is all good and everybody's happy and nobody's still frustrated or feels a little, disrespected or whatever. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully, that's just me being negative, and that they are truly all good now and that, they've been able to squash this beef. But we don't know. We're not in there. We're everything is being treated like a daytime, drama here. And I just hope that it does become a bigger issue throughout the season.
Yeah, you don't love to see the flirting going on throughout the summer, and then it's like, oh, I'm staying at Inter. Or it's like, okay, well, why? Because you weren't able to get the deal that you were looking for, or because you really want to be here. That sketches you out a little bit. We are talking about a player who, as his Inter tenure has gone on, has spent a few more stints on the injury list than you would hope.
Yep.
And ultimately, he's not a player that's going to get better under Kivu. He's either going to stay the same, which wasn't that great last year, or he's going to decline. I think a big part of this was Kivu. I think there was conversations about this market where it was like, okay, if Hakan's out, we need to pick up a midfielder because we're not going to roll with, Sucic from day one alongside Barella. And also, we need some more midfield depth.
Even though we should.
So if Hakan's out, it's Hakan's replacement. Enough money for Stiller or, Rovella, someone like that. Plus one of Leone or Lookman. And I think Kivu is I want to have more attacking options. I want Lookman. I want Leone. Obviously, he has some connection with Leone. And I think he's super good with Hakan staying, wanted Hakan here, and, maybe was a big part of trying to mend that fence there and would rather the allocation of the budget go elsewhere. If it really is a 3-4-2-1, the players today on this team that I feel very confident can play in that two-man midfield are Barella, Hakan, and Sucic. Those are the three. no confidence that in Aslani being able to do it. They've talked about him being off the team. We'll touch on him in a second. Mickey, I don't want in a 2. Fratesi, you can never have in a 2. Never can have in a 2. So even with him staying, it's pretty thin. That's pretty thin. You know, it might be time to look at the Primavera a little bit and say, in a pinch, you know, who's coming up here to help out, because I don't love Berenbrook if he's still here, right? I think so.
So far.
I don't know.
Oh,
but Stankovic, I would have loved in that 2-man midfield. But I digress. All right, so Hakan's here. Aslani.
Pack your shit.
Auxilio said exactly that. He said, it's over. Okay? He doesn't want to go to Betis. There's no one in Serie A that is willing to pay the price for him. This guy's in limbo. I don't want him on the team. I'm good. I don't think he has a role on the squad, especially if we're changing formation. The Aslani experiment is over. How do you get this kid out of here? Are they going to start resorting to, hey, we're sending you down to the 23s, like maybe they should have done to Joaquin Correa in the past when they're, you know, denying moves, or how do you handle this Aslani situation?
Can we just talk about the fact that this guy doesn't want to go live in Sevilla and play for Betis?
Yeah.
Like how dumb are you? You got a club that wants you, and you don't want to go be a part of it. And not for nothing, Real Betis play a pretty nice brand of football.
They do.
And it's like, to have a problem with wanting to go there, I don't understand it, but he's not the smartest guy. So,
and also you're going to a league where maybe your inability to defend very well isn't something that sticks out every single week.
Yeah, I mean, very true, you know, but again, this guy just doesn't seem to have his head on straight. I don't think that he has good advisors around him or surrounding himself with people who have, you know, the best interest for his future and his ability to grow as a player. If he even has one, I really don't even know if he has an ability to grow, because it just seems like he's very stagnant at this point and haven't seen any changes at all in his game. So,
yeah.
I know for me, I would not want to stay somewhere where I'm not wanted. And I would be...
Yeah, you're reporting for preseason after your general manager, your sporting director is like, we told him he's good to go.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
Very.
Kind of awkward. Yeah, I think we both can't wait for the day where that materializes. But let's see. Apparently, Pioli has some interest in him. Let's see if we can work out some sort of deal. We'll likely take a hit on this transfer.
I don't think it'll be that bad of a hit, though, if at all.
Certainly hope so. Another outgoing who has his fair share of suitors: Cagliari, Fiorentina, and Ajax. Seba Esposito. I don't think there's going to be any issues here. I think he's going to go. I think we're going to get in a good price for him. Probably not what you would expect for a 10-goal striker in Serie A last season. But at this point in the Mercato, it's about trimming the squad size, getting, you know, those last few million in the door, really understanding where you stand. And I don't think there's going to be a problem with Esposito. Taremi, suitors in Botafogo, potentially. Their president came out and said, you know, the agent reached out to us, but it's probably not going to materialize. He's trying to move to England.
There is some interest there.
He's not going to be on this team next year.
No. And we could send Nima packing with him.
Oh, my goodness. There was bound to be a shot. There was bound to be a shot. Yeah, I'm not worried about that. Getting offloaded here. I think he will at some point. It's probably going to be
Guys,
like...
There was a time where Nima thought Taremi would score more goals than Retegui.
I never thought that. I did think he would score 15 to 17 goals for Inter last year. I did. Can't shy from it. But either way, Taremi, probably 4 or 5 million. Apparently we asked for 10, which I don't think we should be asking for. But he looks to be on the way out. All right. What we've all been waiting for. The saga that just popped up out of nowhere. Oh, shit. I don't even remember when, like a week ago, almost 10 days ago. Ademola Lookman, the second highest goal scorer in Serie A in the last 3 seasons, beside Lautaro Martinez, agrees terms with Inter, calls in a favor, says, hey, you said you were going to let me go for 40 million. Inter's here with the 40 million. Atalanta says no. It's got to be 50. Some back and forth. Apparently, we haven't really negotiated much other than having this agreement with Lookman, but Lookman really wants to come to Inter. We're coming up on this 10-day mark that we said we needed to close this deal by. Reports that we are increasing the offer to 42 or 43 with bonuses that get up to 45. Marotta and Percassi allegedly meeting at the league meetings this week on Tuesday. This would be a big one, Johnny.
And I think it gets done. I think eventually we do get Lookman across the finish line. And if we're able to bring him in, Napoli, watch your back, bro. Watch your back, because it is going to be hell for you guys. And it doesn't matter what defenders you bring in, who's in net. You know, I know you just brought in Vanya Milinkovic-Savic. Ask him how he did against Zalewski in a game that everyone thought we weren't going to take seriously. Ask him how that went for him. Okay? And now he didn't have to worry about Lookman ripping shots or, you know, Sucic breaking the lines with a pass that frees Lautaro and boom, clean on goal. That's it. We're up 2-0 on those fucking losers from Naples, and Conte's ripping his hair out and crying on the side. Anyway, I digress. You bring in Ademola Lookman in, and that brings in a completely new wrinkle to the way that this team can play. It brings in a guy who's willing to take on his man, who is an excellent dribbler, who has a lethal shot, and is a pretty, you know, disgusting finisher.
Was the Serie A MVP for most of last season. We have to get that correct. Before
100%.
Atalanta fell off and, you know, Napoli have made their charge, he was the MVP early on in the season last year.
Yeah. No, I would have to agree with you there. And he would be a phenomenal signing. And I think, you know, the way things ended with Atalanta, especially given, you know, the strained relationship with Gasperini. And even though Gasperini is gone, I'm sure, you know, he feels, you know, some kind of way that nobody really kind of stood up for him and kind of, you know, went to bat for him as a player. He would be welcomed with open arms at Inter. You know, if he does one big game in one, or, you know, in one of the derbies, you're already a cult hero. So it's a tremendous opportunity for him professionally. If you look, he's really just kind of been on the outskirts of, I mean, realistically, Atalanta is probably the biggest club that he has played for at this point. And it's taken him a little while to develop into the player that he is, but fantastic little forward. And I think he'd be just a huge signing. And I mean, if I'm not mistaken, that number 11 kit's available. So we're just waiting.
This is, if Inter can get this done, it's a bigger signing than I think people are really understanding right now. And it
especially at that price.
That's what I was just going to say. I think there's a level of like tempering the enthusiasm because you're dealing with Atalanta. You know, things are not going to be easy. There hasn't been much movement in this 10-day window that they spoke about needing to get it done in. Zazzaroni from Corriere dello Sport is pretty confident that Marotta is going to get this done with Percassi. He's pretty confident that Atletico is not involved. It's just Inter for Lookman, and Lookman wants to get it done. I have confidence. I think I have more confidence than the general state of Inter Twitter does right now. That's what I'll say. But to your point about the value, if you look at what some of these other players are going for, if Inter does get this over the line for around 45 mil, this is a player, if you've been watching him in Serie A for the past 3 seasons, he's worth like 65. He's worth 60. In this market, he's worth 65. He is a game-changing player. Game-changing player. Anyone that watched him dunk on Pavard last year knows what I'm talking about. Where it'll take him a second to wreck a game. And I think the biggest part of this transfer for me, why I want to get it done so bad, is that we have been missing this profile for quite a long time. Quite a real player with his own flair, with his own ability to impact a game that is not necessarily driven by a system. Barella's a game changer. Lautaro can be a game changer. Thuram can be a game changer. But largely, they have been thriving and existing within a system that has highlighted their strengths. Lookman is a player that doesn't need a system to wreck a team.
I just pulled up something that I think will make Interisti feel better. And look, all right, so Hugo Ekitike just went to Liverpool for 95 million euros, right? Let's go. Hugo stats in 33 Bundesliga games, right? 15 goals, 8 assists. Solid numbers. He had an XG of 21.6. So that's pretty embarrassing that you clearly left 6 goals on the table, almost 7. All right. And I'm not a big XG guy, but there's that. 12 games in the Europa League. 12 games, 4 goals. Okay. So he's got 19 goals in 45 games, which respectable numbers. Ademola Lookman in 2 less games and around 250 minutes less played had the same amount of goals, 15 in the league, less assists. He had 5 to Hugo's 8, but he had an XG of 10.3. So he outperformed his XG. And then in the Champions League, not the Europa League, he played 5 less games overall and scored 2 more goals.
Yeah.
Ademola Lookman can do more with less, and you're getting him for half the price of this striker who just went to Liverpool.
The other argument that people would make there is like age has a lot to do with it. But what I would say should excite Interisti is, when is the last time Inter have been able to purchase a player who is in their prime on a good deal, a top class player in their prime on a good deal like this? That's not the kind of deal that we have been accustomed to be able to do. So to try to gift this, and they've been very public about this saga, which is also, if you're not confident in being able to get it done, you wouldn't let it get to this kind of level. So this is a really exciting one. It's a really exciting one. I would say, I'm about to sneeze, Johnny. It's coming and then it's going.
I know that feeling all too well.
I would say I'm about an 80% chance, 80% confidence that this deal gets done this week. So let's see how it shakes out. But if it does, a front 3 consisting of Lautaro, Lookman, Thuram, yeah, I think people maybe need to adjust their expectations for what this team can do next season. I just opened up Twitter, by the way, Johnny. A report comes in, Gazzetta, saying a defensive midfielder on the way, one of Frendrup or Mandela Keita from Parma.
I'd rather Frendrup. Not that I don't like Keita. I think that he's a very strong player. But I'm a big Morten Frendrup fan too. I don't know, something about Danish players. I'm just a fan. The Danes are like right below the Croatians for me lately.
If there's not enough money for Lookman, Leone, and Frendrup, so
you don't know that. Well, somebody could be leaving.
What? Yeah, I guess somebody could. But let's say they're not. Like, what deal just became completely in jeopardy? The Lookman deal, the Leone deal.
I would say the Leone deal more than the Lookman deal.
It does seem like the chatter has been like Leone, but later.
And I would say Leone, but I think all 3 are happening. No, I'm kidding.
That would be nice. That would be nice. All right. That was good. We just went through a whole lot. We talked about this team, and it's been a while. Anything else you want to discuss? This week we'll do another episode because obviously you're expecting some things to shake out. But anything else we should talk about right now?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Check this out, guys.
Oh shoot, I don't have mine on my phone right now, but I did have it yesterday when I went out to dinner.
Nice. Okay, I think I'm good to go.
Okay, works for
All
me.
right. In the words of the great Roberto Scarpini, forza ragazzi, forza ragazzi, forza ragazzi.